We are ready to begin, so if you would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we will begin our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Uh, My pleasure to welcome you here. This evening, the Board of Education is honoring an outstanding group of Parkway students and staff. We're recognizing state sports champions. And I would like to invite Mr. Corey Johnson. I don't see Corey. Is Corey being, oh, there's Corey right there. Corey Johnson to join us. He's Director of Athletics and Activities and introduce the state sports champions.
Good evening. On behalf of our Board of Education, Dr. Snyder, it's my honor this evening to recognize our state champions from our fall season. And tonight we will recognize two teams from Central High School, the girls cross country team and the boys swim and dive team. So now for our state champions, we'll start with the girls cross country team and our head coach, Coach Banta, if Coach Banta can come up, and also our state champion, uh, s- our state champion in the Class 4 championship of the cross country meet, Gabrielle Morrissey. Could you please come up? Sorry. We get to talk good about it. So Gabrielle this year, she won the Class 4 championship. Her time was 18 minutes and 26.8 seconds. And I have to say this: the two things. One, Dr. Snyder was able to join us and actually see the meet and witness this, and so that was really special. And then at the state meet, there's a big board that has the athletes' names and their times and their live times as they're running. And so as we're watching this board, Gabby didn't know this, but as we see her moving and see her time going, and that just got all of us so excited. And then that final stretch as we see her coming over that hill, I mean, we were literally almost in tears watching Gabby come through. So she's just amazing. It was an amazing and exhilarating race. It was probably the most exciting race of the day because of how close and how competitive it was. But she did a wonderful job. We actually get to have her come back in the spring and try to do this again, and then next year in the fall. So she gets an opportunity to be one of the few back-to-back champions and double champions for both cross country and track. And what's most impressive about Gabby is she does this and she also carries a 3.9 GPA. So again, our girls class 4 cross country state champion. Our second state championship team from Central High also is our boys Class 1 champions. They are the state swim and dive champions this year, and they are coached by head coach Andrew Shanoff, and his assistants are Natalie Kerner and Abigail Vermeer. And actually, they were not able to make it tonight, but a couple of the athletes are here, and we will go ahead and recognize our state champions that are here. So if the state champions for the team could come up. And tonight with us, we have Hunter Dirchman and we have Adish uh, Garatharan. And so they are our state champions that were here, that are here present today. The championship team uh, this year won several races. In placing first overall, the team won the 200 medley relay, which Hunter was one of the main legs on that medley relay in a time of 1 minute and 34 seconds, 0.99 seconds. The team won the 200 freestyle relay in 1 minute 26.52 seconds. Hunter also led the 400 free relay in 3 minutes 13.46 seconds. And then also Hunter placed third in the 100-meter butterfly. So Hunter had a great meet overall. We did have two other individual champions. Those champions were junior Connor Moran. He placed first in the 200 IM and also the 100 breaststroke. And then Brody placed first in the 100 free and also the 100 backstroke. One thing I'd like to add again with our students, with our state swimmers, also Connor has a 4.07 GPA, not a 4.07 GPA. Brody has a 4.1, and Brody is the only senior, not the only senior, I'm sorry. Brody and Hunter are the seniors of the group. And then the team itself has an overall accumulative GPA of 3.609. So again, these are great swimmers, great leaders in our school, and also great students. So we really are proud of these young men and this team. The unique thing about this team that's really unheard of is this is a four-peat, 4 consecutive state championships. So for Hunter, he has won state every year that he has been a student at Central, which is just rare. That's something that does not happen very often, if at all. So congratulations to these young men, this team, and their accomplishments. So just briefly in closing, I'd like to say we're very proud of our state champions and their accomplishments. We're also proud of them and how they're leaders in our schools. We wish them all luck the rest of the year in their endeavorments. Good luck to our seniors next year in college. And then lastly, we really want to thank and recognize all of our parents. We really appreciate the support that you give our teams and everything you do to allow us to be successful, and all of the encouragement and support that you give our teams throughout the year. I must admit our student and family section at the state swim meet, it outmatches everybody. So they know where the Central swim team sits, and I will say that last 400 relay, you guys, that was an amazing sight. The way we came back and won that. I think we went from third or fourth to come back and win. So just congratulate you and thank you for everything that you've done for us.
Congratulations again to our students and your coaches. We're very proud of you, and parents, you have some amazing students, and we couldn't be more excited for the state championships this year. At this time, we'll take a brief recess and we'll resume the meeting shortly. Okay, we will resume our meeting. Next up on the agenda is 7.0, which is additions, corrections, and modifications. Tonight, those just include one thing, 7.01, addition to agenda item 11.09, approval of personnel items. Next up is a period of public comment. It's during this time that we have provided an opportunity for citizen comments in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. Public comment session is not the appropriate forum for addressing individually identifiable student and/or personnel matters. Therefore, due to privacy laws protecting students and employees, comments about these matters should not include personally identifiable information about particular students or employees. Members of the public, staff, and students are encouraged to utilize established policies and procedures for offering suggestions or addressing concerns and complaints prior to bringing the issue before the board. Please be mindful that the meetings of the board, including your statements at the podium, are broadcast and that you are responsible for any public comments you make. In lieu of a public statement, you may choose to submit your comments to the board in writing. Also, due to the time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. We're always available to have an open dialogue outside of our meetings and can be reached by email or phone using the contact information on the Parkway website. Tonight, I believe we have 3 speakers. Each of you will have 3 minutes, and I will call on speakers in order in which they have signed up. Once you get it to the podium, please reintroduce yourself and let us know your affiliation or connection to Parkway. We will begin with Tina Miller.
Good evening, Board of Education members, Dr. Schneider and Mrs. Stover. My name is Tina Miller. I am a proud Parkway parent, recently retired teacher of 35 years from Central Middle, retiree representative on the district's recent morale committee, and a Parkway substitute teacher. Tonight, I address you as an invested resident to share an important component of how I believe Parkway can work towards being its best version yet, by improving teacher morale. Many things factor into low educator morale: stagnant salaries, rising insurance costs, recent increases in class sizes, pro bono expectations of educators' personal time. While these systemic and local issues are complex and must be addressed, one issue that can be addressed immediately is to ensure that Parkway educators, people who have direct and daily contact with students, are at the forefront in all decision-making. Educators are the first responders. They are the screeners and implementers for said initiatives. Yet increasingly, decisions have been made that affect students and educators but do not engage staff. We need to ask not only how will this directly benefit students, but also educators. Is this new initiative actually helping? If their answer is no, there must be an immediate response. There is no time for things that don't yield results. This diverts energy away from the classroom. Perhaps via simple rebranding by overlap of something already done, experienced, seen, or implemented, often educators feel overwhelmed by the quantity of new initiatives they are responsible for rolling out. At times, while still in the process of delivering the last initiative, educators become demoralized when they are required to devote time to new initiatives that divert time from a vital classroom task, such as prepping, planning, or feedback-based grading, to a task that does not produce observable results. People who are most affected by any decision must play a crucial role in the decision-making process. Parkway has an opportunity to return to being the best place to work, not only by offering a desirable calendar, first-class salaries and benefits, but while simultaneously valuing, honoring, and acting upon educators' voices. This will be validated by consistent, solid student learning results concurrent with high educator morale. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Rachel Song.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Rachel Song, and I am a teacher at Parkway South High. I was fortunate enough to get my start in Parkway as a student teacher at North High. I learned so much in that experience, but one of my biggest takeaways was how happy the staff was to work in Parkway. They found meaning in their work with students, and they felt respected by administration. Teachers in the building encouraged me and helped confirm that I had chosen the right profession. When my student teaching was over, I knew I wanted to work in Parkway. And in 2014, that dream came true, and I accepted a position at Parkway North High. It was truly one of the best moments of my life. As a new teacher, I felt challenged and supported. The more experienced teachers encouraged me to take on leadership roles and to become involved with committees. Through that work, I felt valued by the district. In 2016, I transferred to South High, and South and North are different buildings, but what held true at both places is that teachers loved where they worked and couldn't imagine being in any other district. Parkway, regardless of the building, was the place to be. In 2023, the mood and morale changed dramatically. For the first time in my career, I voted no on the contract presented from NEA. I was disheartened by the failure of the salary schedule to keep up with inflation and the decision to shorten the high school teachers' plan time. What contributed further to the morale change was the lack of a clear and cohesive message from district decision makers as to why these big changes were taking place. The impact of that can be seen in the data from the semi-annual survey teachers took in November of 2024. The district summarized the results as follows. Staff indicated a key concern being that the district does not effectively listen to or address staff needs and concerns. In that same survey, when asked how likely teachers would be to recommend the district to a friend, only 21% of the staff responded positively. Now, staff or morale has not been lower in my career, but I do not believe that these challenges are insurmountable. And so, with that in mind, I'm asking for your support for a contract that includes a salary schedule that keeps up with inflation, more plan time for all levels, and a clear plan from the district on how to communicate more effectively with teachers and to allow our voices to affect change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Amy Hubbard.
Good evening. My name is Amy Hubbard. I am a social studies teacher at Parkway South. I've been in the district for many years. Following up on what Rachel has just said about teacher salaries, last board meeting, Drew Jennings, another colleague, talked about the real numbers of inflation and what that feels like and what that means to us. That because of inflation, that even though on paper we received a raise, it doesn't really account for a raise because of the reality that we live in. I wanted to give a couple of other real life scenarios that are more like it's not just the numbers on paper or we're doing really well. It's more kind of, I think, reality. One example is I know of a teacher who is a fifth-year teacher with a master's degree in the district. And as that teacher goes from step 5 to step 6, she will get a $500 salary increase based on the current salary schedule. However, starting in January, as we all know, every person is going to need to start paying $50 a paycheck. So therefore, that's $1,200 over the course of the year. So the $500 increase now becomes a $700 reduction. So she is adding a year of experience, and right this second, that means $700 less in real money that I think needs to be addressed and needs to be seen in a very straightforward way. I personally am on the other end of the career. I am closer to retirement. Similarly, just like the deductibles have gone incredibly up for individuals, My deductible as the person who carries my husband and our two youngest children, my deductible has gone up $1,600. Now that's a deductible. We won't maybe use that. For me, that is real money. That is a real hit to a salary of mine. There's no way around it. I go into next year as well with a decrease. I'm on the other end of the salary spectrum, but I'm not at the top. I have hit the rule of 80 last year. I could retire this year. I do not think the real math allows me to, because my entire retirement will be eaten up. I gotta read this last one. We have a good district. Our messaging is a good district. Our kids are good. We have an excellent education. It should not be, though, that reputation is on the financial backs of the people that most directly and daily make this district a good educational district. It should not be on us to take the hit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Next up on our agenda is actually the approval of our agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for December 10th, 2025? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, January 14th, beginning at 7 p.m. Here at the Parkway Welcome Center. Next up, 10.02, Board and Superintendent Reports. Matt, you want to start us up?
Sure. I'm just going to share two things. Since the last meeting, we had a communications lab with the teachers union, which I think was a good start to the negotiation process. And we also had a student advisory committee meeting with high schoolers and middle schoolers. And it was more around the buildings and the future of schools, but I should be surprised after all these years. Even though we want to discuss buildings, the first issue for the kids is always the food. So I think it's interesting that this year we do go up for bid on our food service. So we'll take their comments into heart as we go into those negotiations.
I want to also thank the speakers tonight. We are listening. Along with Matt, I was at the PNEA Communications Lab and Student Advisory, and to Matt's point, it always does amaze me what they think of that I would never have thought of when it comes to facilities and what they want to see. So it really, I know we took notes of everything that we had. It was really quite an amazing night. A special thing for me is I got to have coffee with a student who's in the Spark program, who's interested in potentially pursuing a career in law. And it was just a great opportunity for us to have a conversation and see, a different side of law that maybe she hasn't seen. And hopefully, down the road, she starts that profession. And then lastly, kind of selfishly, as I reported last year, my wife started the Parkway Central Middle School dance team this year, and they had their first competition over the weekend. They were second in their hip hop routine and fifth in their pom routine, and I was Coach Spector for the day doing the music. But it was a great time, and very proud of the girls, and my wife is the coach.
Yes, congratulations.
DJ Spector, yes.
Yeah, that's right. I just want to mention a couple things. There was a steering committee meeting on November 17th that some of us attended. Again, covering those important topics of Facilities 2050, budget task force updates, as well as CSIP progress. And then this last Saturday, I attended I guess we call it a seminar or workshop with the St. Louis School Board's Professional Learning Community, which is an organization that brings together school board members and superintendents from around the area to share ideas and go over topics. This is my first one, and so I thought it was great. The focus was on board superintendent relations and best practices and that sort of thing, and so it was really educational for me, and it was great to be able to meet other people in the area from other districts. So that's it.
Right. So I know Mr. Schindler had mentioned the kids don't necessarily care for our lunches. I had lunch at Northeast Middle on November 21st, and I can see a difference between the last lunch I had and the one I had at Northeast. So there is some variance that I'm noticing, but I would like to put it out there. If anybody wants me to come to their school, let me know. I will gladly come and try out your lunch. And if you don't like it, then, maybe I won't like it and we can talk. So, I also went to the student advisory meeting that was last Thursday. I'm not gonna go over anything else there, but we did have a very good crowd of kids. So it's always good to hear their perspectives, and I think that our facilities 2050 committee will definitely be utilizing the input that they got from them. And then also the St. Louis County PLC, that was Saturday, as Mr. Kilper mentioned. One of our own was one of the panelists, Mr. Jeff Todd. So it was great to support him, as well as just be around other board members and superintendents and understand some of the things that they might do differently, that we might be able to bring to our district and make improvements on. That's it. Thanks.
So I've been on the board for 8 years now, but apparently I've wasted the whole time. I didn't realize we could just show up at the schools for lunch, but maybe I'll start looking into that. We don't generally address the citizen statements, and I will refrain from addressing the actual merits of what was said. But I want to talk about how it was said and what was said, and really, really appreciate your perspective. I want to tell you, as a human, I empathize. I see the world seems like it's squeezing everybody, and we're all humans up here, and what you're saying is not lost on us. I do appreciate your perspective, but I also want to talk about the way you said it. In my day job, I am exposed to all different styles of advocacy, and I really appreciate the style that all three of you brought tonight. It's not combative. We're all a team. It's collaborative, and I really, really respect the way you made yourself heard tonight. So thank you very much for your contributions.
I think one of the most positive things in Parkway is our ability to stay civil while we have awesome conversations. So I thank you for that as well. I also want, in addition to some of the things that were mentioned, as having attended student advisory group, the steering committee, the board PLC, I'll just say a note about that. We ended up having 31 attendees with 15 different school districts represented, in addition to a St. Charles County school. So we're, and for a very busy time of the year in the beginning of December, we were very thankful for that turnout. In addition to Jeff Todd as one of our panelists, we had 3 other board members that came from, we had a Melville School Board Director, a special school district board director, and a U City board director. In addition to 2 superintendents on our panel, one for the Rittner superintendent, and then the superintendent from Clayton, Dr. Nisha Patel, who's on our planning committee as well. And then we had breakout sessions on board self-evaluation, superintendent evaluation, and best practices for board superintendents working together. So this is a topic that's very important to being on the board, building trust and having proper communication, et cetera. So I too was very heartwarmed and touched by the coming together of so many different districts together to learn from each other and to grow. In addition to the PNEA steering committee, we also met with our PUMA group tonight. So that was just a communication lab, but that's important to keep our bargaining units, that we stay in touch with them, we keep communication going with them, and listen to all the issues and concerns that our various different groups have. And in addition to all of that, I also attended the Special School Districts Governing Council meeting on December 1st, which ended up going virtual because that was a bad snow day. And we reviewed the CSIP and budget adjustments for that, in addition to how that will affect the future budgeting of that district moving forward. Lots of questions came around, of course, about that, and they are in the process of their right the ship plan, and we're hopeful that that will stay on target. So they're a very important institution for our partner districts. There's 22 partner districts that rely on them for special ed services. And so we're hopeful that we can work together to bring about best practices with them and their financial situation as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I won't reiterate most of what my fellow board members talked about, all the different things we've been doing the last month or so. I will thank Debbie, who was one of the planners of the St. Louis PLC group, and so it was a great morning, great event. And I'll also give a little shout out to Mr. Kilper, because as he mentioned, this was his first time he'd ever been to one, and lo and behold, at the end, he was up presenting for his breakout group. So I was kind of impressed by that. So well done. Way to jump in. You'll be in charge of the next one, I'm sure. And also want to give a shout out and thanks to the Webelos One Den from Shenandoah Elementary School, who I spent an evening with about a week or so ago. 16 fourth grade boys and girls, and they were a lively bunch. But we spent a good while talking about civic responsibility and what a school board member does, and I had questions about the lunch menu. The fourth graders decided they need a vending machine, and they want a student lounge next to the teacher lounge. So I didn't make any promises for any of that, but a great time with that group. So
Wonderful. Well, I have a few similar things that were mentioned as well. Mr. Schindler and Ms. Matt Franklin talked about the food, and I actually went to a demonstration that was at River Bend, and I rode the bicycle smoothie machine. And actually it made ranch dressing, but it was a blender that was behind the seat of a bike, and I rode it, and the kids, I mean, I never saw such engagement from the kids. They just, you could hear a pin drop or the bicycle spinning, and that was it. That was a lot of fun. It was put on by our Chartwell's Food Agency, and they were just getting the kids really excited about just trying different things. So that was neat. Last night I attended the West High and West Middle's choir concert at Missouri Baptist University. Beautiful concert, absolutely talented singers. The kids worked so hard on their performance. It was very nice to see that. I've been making my rounds and seeing the music this time of year at the schools, and if I can't see their concert, I've gone to their rehearsal. And so I went to South High's rehearsal. I will see Central's art show next week, and also North High, one of their choirs rehearsal for their winter concert. It's just a beautiful time of year to hear such great music. The kids have been preparing so hard for it. I also, before Thanksgiving, was able to meet many of our faith leaders in the community and share some volunteer work in packing Thanksgiving bags for families who access the food pantry. So that was a really nice time to be able to get to know our faith leaders and do something together with them. And today, it was a partial day for students, and so after the students were out, we treated our school resource officers to an annual luncheon, and it was wonderful to see them and say thank you for their service to us and for the partnership that we have with our municipalities who help provide the SROs to our schools. So that was also nice to see them today. And last but not least, our budget task force wrapped up their work for this semester just this past week, and we look forward to presenting to you in January.
excellent. Next up on the agenda is 10.03, Board of Education candidate filing announcement. The board candidate filing opened at 8 a.m. yesterday at the St. Louis County Board of Elections. As of close of business today, 3 candidates have filed for the 3 open positions on the Parkway Board of Education. I'm not even going to read this part because nobody's going to stand. But the candidates currently, as their names will appear on the ballot, are Tiffany Mapp Franklin, Jeff Todd, and Debbie Hopper. So filing will continue through Tuesday, December 30th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Candidates must file in person at the St. Louis County Board of Elections, 725 Northwest Plaza Drive, St. Anne, Missouri, 63074. We were all there yesterday. No filing will take place at the district office. Candidates may file between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Filing ends at 5 p.m. on the last day of candidate filing only. The Board of Election office will be closed on December 25th and may also close due to inclement weather. The election will be held on Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. Next up, 11.0 is our consent agenda. We've had an opportunity to review that the last several days. And so may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the December 10th, 2025 board meeting materials?
So moved.
Second.
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Next up is 12.0, an action item. And I'm just going to preface this by saying, and I'm not going to go into great detail, but if you remember a couple of years ago, November 2022, 3 years ago, our voters gave us a very clear directive when they overwhelmingly approved Proposition S, which expanded access to early childhood education by creating more space for our youngest learners. And tonight, we're taking a significant step toward fulfilling that promise. So I would like to welcome up Ms. Carrie Nunn, Mr. Kevin Beckner, and Jason Rooks. Dr. Kevin Beckner.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much. We are here tonight to talk about a potential early childhood center acquisition. So tonight what we're going to cover with you is the early childhood proposed expansion and the bond issue, where we've been, where we are currently. We're going to look at the proposed centers, its qualities and its conditions, and then we'll look at what the opportunities we think this center will bring for our parents and students in Parkway. So just as a reminder, this is where we've been in our journey with the early childhood expansion. In 2018, there was an early childhood steering committee that recommended expansion. And then in 2021, we had Advent Marketing conduct an early child marketing study that confirmed this recommendation. And in 2022, as Mr. Todd mentioned, we had our community approve Prop S, and it's part of that language and that commitment. It included constructing an early childhood center. And in 2023, we actually began the prelim for building for putting in a center between Wren Hollow and Southwest Middle. But due to traffic and other concerns in 2024, it led the board to defer that planning to Facilities 2050. And then in 2025, this year, we were actually approached by a realtor for the Raintree School to consider possibly purchasing 2100 South Mason Road, currently known as the Raintree School. So just as a reminder where we've been, so this is language, an example of language where we made a commitment to expand and add an early childhood center to address the increasing demands that we had on our early childhood services in the district. And this is, again, as Mr. Todd mentioned, in 2022, when the community generously and kindly approved Prop S, they granted us $250 million. And of that $250 million, we allocated $25 million to an early childhood center. And as we began preparing for a site between Wren Hollow and Southwest Middle, we had to spend money for architects to develop those plans. So we did expend $1.2 million, which leaves us with a remaining allocation of $23.8 million. And it's just as a reminder, for Prop S funds, these are restricted funds, meaning that we can only use these funds when we are fulfilling the promises that our voters approved in the bond, in the ballot language of 2022. So these cannot be redirected to salaries, benefits, supplies, services. We can only use this money towards fulfilling our promises that we made to our community. And so the Prop S allocation of the $250 million And so we have 23.8 right now set aside for early childhood expansion. So now I am going to actually turn this over to Dr. Beckner.
Well, thank you so much. When we were approached with the opportunity to consider the purchase of the center, the first questions we had to ask are, where is this building? Would it meet our needs in terms of location and serving our community? And then the building itself, will it meet the needs of our youngest learners? So this property, as mentioned, is located at 2100 South Mason Road. To orient you on the map, on the left-hand side, running north to south, we see Highway 141. On the far right-hand side, we see Highway 270. And that road cutting right through the middle is Manchester Road. And as you see, that is where the property is right off of Manchester Road on the north side, just off Mason. Overlaying our school boundaries, you'll see in one moment that our closest school is one of our South area schools at Carmen Trails Elementary, followed by Piermont Elementary, and then Barrett's, which is also in the South area. Here is that map overlaying our attendance areas. So we see that this property, which is that star at the top, is right near the confluence of the Mason Ridge attendance area, the Barrett's Elementary attendance area, and the Carmen Trails Elementary attendance area. Having seen that geographically it would meet many of our needs, including what the market study told us was an area of need in the South area, we then had to start looking at the building itself, and will the building itself meet the needs of our youngest learners? So here you see some of the qualities. In a moment we'll show some pictures that illustrate these qualities, and that includes 8 total classrooms, 7 of which have dedicated restrooms. They all have exterior entrances where students can leave directly from the classroom. There's a multi-purpose room, there's a kitchen, a cafeteria. There are large windows and natural landscapes. The school was actually built as an outdoor learning school, and the property, which we'll see in a moment, really lends itself to students being outdoors and plenty of area for play. Lots of contemporary designs, a focus on sustainability. We'll see solar panels in some of our images, ample space for students to be outdoors. And one of the big features is it's specifically designed for our youngest learners, which we know is a struggle in many of our current preschool sites, where we have sites that are inside of elementary schools, and restrooms and other features are not necessarily designed for our youngest students, whereas this space is. Here's the overall facility. It sits on just under 11 acres, about 10.75 acres of land right along Mason Road. Here's an example of one of the classrooms. There are 6 classrooms on the main floor. They're all fairly standard, looking like this. So as we said, large windows, lots of natural light in these spaces, again, designed for young children to learn in. There are 2 classrooms on the lower level, which was part of a 2017 expansion of the building, and we'll point that out again here in one moment. But again, ample space for children, designed to foster their early learning. Beautiful cafeteria space with very large windows, very bright open space for our students. This large multi-purpose room, which like in any school would be used for a variety of purposes and student activities. Here's that overhead shot. On the right-hand side of that picture, you see a white rectangle with no solar panels. That was part of the 2017 addition. The rest of the building was built in 2013. So having looked at all the qualities of this building, it looks like the location would serve the Parkway community well. The physical building would serve the Parkway community well, but we certainly have to do our due diligence and see, is there anything else going on behind the scenes that we might need to know about? So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason Brooks to talk about the due diligence process.
The good news is this will be short and sweet. As excited as we are about this opportunity, we wanted to make sure we properly assess the condition of the building and the land. And so we engaged most of our operations leaders, including our facilities leaders, our technology leaders, as well as our nutrition leaders, as well as engaged a third-party architectural engineering company that had actually helped us with some of the designs for the original ECC plans. And we did an evaluation and assessment of the mechanical or HVAC systems, the electrical, plumbing, as well as the structural evaluation and a survey of the land. I'm happy to say that overall, a summary was the building structural systems appear to be in generally good condition and suitable for continued use. So it was all very positive marks from that third-party evaluation. But like any new thing, we did identify some things that we knew we were going to have to do to really get it to where we want it to be. So we put together some estimated costs of some of the items that we would want to try to address over the next year to 2 years. A big one of those being HVAC automation, integrating it in with making it like other Parkway school buildings. LED conversion, looking at a playground. You know, it's something you don't think about, but we need to make sure that it aligns with our playground safety standards. It doesn't currently have ADA access to the lower floor, and so we know we're going to have to add an elevator to allow that ADA access, finish out the sprinkler system, as well as potentially looking at a parking lot expansion. So our liberal estimate of what those costs would be under $2 million. Some of the other things we haven't accounted for would be we're still putting together cost estimates around technology integration. So how do we what would the cost be around bringing in all the technology, the smart boards, the laptops, all the phones and all those types of things, as well as a potential kitchen renovation, which we're still looking into, as well as other kind of ancillary support services that we would need adding on a building. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie.
So as I mentioned previously, we do have remaining allocation of Prop S funds for an early childhood center of $23.8 million. 2100 South Mason Road's purchase price is $4,300,000. And then taking into consideration the estimate totals of the renovations that Jason just shared with you, that would be an additional $1.8 million, which brings that the total purchase price plus estimated renovations to be $6.1 million. So that means that even with this purchase, we would still have a remaining $17.6 million remaining to be able to address any future early childhood expansion capital supports that we would want to do. So that 6.1% roughly represents about 26% of the remaining allocation of that 23.8, and then that 17.6 million represents 74% left of that of the current allocation that we have for Prop S remaining for early childhood. So with this opportunity to purchase this property, we believe that this is one step towards keeping our promise with Prop S. We believe that it expands early access, expands access to early childhood programming. This is a faster, more cost-efficient solution than building a building from the ground up. It does offer better spaces for our students, and we also believe it is a great opportunity because we still have remaining funds from Prop S to help future early childhood expansion needs. Any questions?
Well, first off, thank you for that presentation. I appreciate that. We appreciate that. Could you just talk about the number of, because one of the things we talked about previously was the wait list of students or children waiting to get into our schools for early childhood education. How would that impact the wait list? In what timeline?
Certainly. One of the exciting parts about this facility is we believe that we could open in August, which would mean that we would have students who would have increased access to early childhood. It will depend specifically on what types of classrooms we open, meaning full day versus half day. Those numbers obviously vary quite substantially. We generally consider if you have an early childhood half day classroom, we count that as about 54 students between things like, are you doing 2 days? Are you doing 3 days, 4 days, afternoon, morning, versus if you open them as full day classrooms, which obviously then that number goes down. That's about 18 students per full day classroom. Either way, we would be opening multiple new classrooms beginning in the fall that would obviously impact our wait list very positively. We do have hundreds of families currently on the wait list hoping to get into Parkway preschool classrooms. So any addition of those classrooms is going to provide an increased opportunity and reduce those wait lists. If they were all half-day classrooms, it would obviously have a more substantial impact just because you're adding a larger number of students with half-day classrooms, full-day classrooms slightly smaller, but either way, we could be talking about anything upwards of a 75% reduction of the current wait list that's in the south area. So it could be potentially substantial. It will not reduce our entire wait list because we know our wait lists are quite long for all of our early childhood programming, but this would make a substantial impact on our ability to reduce those wait lists.
Can you just touch on too the fact that after the site at Wren Hollow went away, we still continue to look. And I think it's important to point out for the taxpayers too, the fact that we're getting 11 acres and a building already built. This the sheer cost to buy that type of land in the Parkway District and to build a new building. It is a very nice deal we're getting by taking this building on.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and we never did stop our looking. We were just coming up empty-handed until this opportunity, until we were approached by Rain Tree's realtor. It was very much unexpected and a very pleasant pleasant surprise. But yeah, we do have relationship with our realtors, and they were actively looking for us, and we just weren't coming up with anything until Rain Tree reached out to us. So this is a great opportunity.
I'll just add to the fact that we discussed how the age of our buildings in Parkway, this will be our youngest building coming in.
Yeah, it will decrease that average.
And so, to Matt's point, where do we go from here? I mean, I know, Kevin, you said that we'll be possibly able to open next August. Where does that leave the rest of our people on the wait list? How aggressively are we going to continue looking for additional opportunities in the south area?
Well, as Carrie shared, with 17 million remaining, that does provide us quite a bit of opportunity should something come up. Our realtor partners are still looking for us, and we'll continue to monitor if something comes up that seems to meet our needs. In the meantime, all that work has been deferred to Facilities 2050. So as they're creating long-term plans around our facility usage, our facility needs, they will continue to look for those opportunities. So it leaves us in a place where, while this will make a dent, we certainly are going to continue looking for additional opportunities to meet the needs that our community is asking for, which is, to fulfill those wait lists and get students who want to attend a Parkway preschool into a Parkway preschool. We don't see anything immediate, but I know Facilities 2050 and our realtors partners will continue to do that work moving forward.
One of the positives I see in this purchase is the outdoor school concept, and I know Lane is here, but how would is this location envisioned to be served as a different purpose than the other locations? Are we going to do more outdoor learning? Do you see new types of programs being able to come about?
Well, I
as a
know if
result
Elena
of
had
this
her way, it'd be
location?
nothing but outdoor learning. We are, and I'm just speaking for Elena, they're already doing quite a bit with students outdoors, particularly at the current Early Childhood West location, where they can get those students outside and have them, experiencing nature and expanding their horizons. We don't want to say outdoor learning only happens at one site. We certainly don't want to say that. But what we do know is when you have that land, you're going to take an opportunity to use it, right? And so there are trails. There's a stream at the bottom end of the property. We know that there's quite a bit of outdoor space, even once we add a Parkway playground to it. So they'll continue to build on those opportunities. I don't want to say that it's different programming because all of our schools have great programming that are already doing that, but it certainly presents more opportunities for students at that location to be outdoors more frequently just because the physical space allows for it.
And I may have missed something in the presentation, but what's the purpose for potentially having to expand the parking lot? Are we going to be having more students there, more staff?
So currently that parking lot, I don't want to cite the number exactly, but it's somewhere around 35, 36 parking spaces, which depending on the type of programming there can be fairly tight. So we will be looking at possibly expanding that. Just when you add staff, plus parents when they're arriving for drop off. A lot of times, unlike our elementary schools, the parents are often walking those students in, which means they're parking in the lot rather than driving through and dropping off. And that just creates some additional space constraints in the parking lot there. If we are not able to do that for some reason, we don't believe that's a deal breaker, but it would require us to shift some start times around to ensure that our families can get in and out safely and get their students into that space. But with that just number of parking spots, that's significantly fewer than many of our schools and certainly fewer than at our existing early childhood center. So that's why we would be looking at that parking lot expansion.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you to Jason and Carrie and Kevin and your teams that have been spending so much time. I know evaluating this, doing the due diligence. You know, we really appreciate the quick turn. If you know this fell in your lap in the spring, and here we are before the end of the year, already trying to wrap this up. So we appreciate that, and obviously the staff. You know, I hope you all are excited about it. As we hope you will be, but I think it's a great opportunity for early childhood. I think it's a great opportunity for our community, and we just appreciate everybody's efforts on this. So, thank you. Okay, with all that said, may I have a motion and a second to approve the attached resolution of the Board of Education Parkway School District regarding the purchase of the real estate property located in St. Louis County, Missouri, commonly known as 2100 South Mason Road, Town and Country, Missouri, 63131, as presented in the December 10th, 2025 board meeting materials. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Kilper,
Yes.
Ms. Matt Franklin,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer,
Yes.
Mr. Spector,
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Next, I'd like to invite Carrie to come on back up with Dawn Trokey in tow, maybe? There she is. And they will introduce our auditor.
Before I, come on up here, Don. Before I introduce our auditor, this is always a time and space for me to honor a group of our staff that rarely get recognition. So you're in a moment going to hear from KEB, our auditor, and go through the audit report. And it is a good report. And that is only because we have an excellent executive director of finance and we have an excellent finance department. You only get a good audit report when you have a group that is willing to sit there from day to day and hold people accountable and oftentimes tell them no. It's a grueling task that they do, and they do it diligently. And it's those everyday interactions that will lead to an audit report that is clean and produces good financial reporting. So we owe them a big thanks for the work that they do. And this is the moment when they get to shine, because this is a report that reflects their hard work. So on that note, thank you, Dawn. And I'd also like to take a moment now to introduce our auditor. Tonight we have with us Brian Wartz, and he is our KEB. He is a KEB engagement partner, and he's here tonight to share the audit report with you.
Thank you. You did fail to mention that you have excellent auditors as well.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Absolutely.
So, we have a brief presentation here tonight, and there's some required communications that we have to communicate to the board and those charged with governance as a part of our engagement. And we can do that in a letter, but since we're at a board presentation, we just do it sort of orally as opposed to a letter. And this sort of satisfies those requirements. One thing I think we need to mention that's in this report is there's a certificate of excellence in financial reporting. So the CAFR is given to Missouri ASBO for their review to determine that it meets the reporting requirements, and then they sometimes they'll issue a couple of goofy comments to make them know that they're doing their job. But we get that, the district gets that certificate every year. That's been going on since I've been involved with the district as an auditor. So you should be extremely proud of that as well. When I talk about it all, before I get into this, I like to just give a little bit of background as to what each other's role is when it comes to an audit. And it's the management's responsibility with your oversight to prepare the financial statements in accordance with the basis of accounting that they select, which is the accrual basis of accounting for government-wide financial statements and the modified accrual basis of accounting for the fund financial statements. And then there's a reconciliation in between those two. The other thing that they're required to do is design, implement, and maintain an internal control structure to safeguard the assets of the district and to determine that there's not a material misstatement in the financial statements that would go undetected. And then the final thing, which we're both responsible to do, is determine that the district is a going concern, that it will be around 12 months after the date of our financial statements, the date of our opinion. So we're both required to do that. Our then responsibility is our objective of the audit is to provide reasonable assurance that there's not a material misstatement in the financial statements. And reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it's not 100% because we do not test 100% of the transactions. So we can't give absolute assurance, but we give reasonable assurance. So we do a risk-based approach, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But if there's a material misstatement in the financial statement and it's due to fraud, it's harder for us to detect. So that's if there's a material misstatement related to fraud, it's harder for us to detect. The other thing, when we're doing a risk-based approach audit, we review the internal controls of the district and we get an understanding of the internal controls. We will walk a couple transactions through the system and determine that they're operating as they were described to us, but we do not give an opinion on the internal controls. That's outside the scope of an audit. As it relates to federal programs, we will even test internal controls and compliance, but again, we're not giving an opinion on the internal controls of the district. We are also required to exercise professional judgment while doing our audit and have professional skepticism. That's a part of our audit as well. And once again, evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies used to prepare the financial statements and to determine that the entity is a going concern as well. The last thing I want to talk about a little bit is fraud. We're not required to develop audit procedures to detect fraud, but if something comes to our attention while performing our audit that we think could be fraud, then we're required to expand our procedures to determine that it's not. But we do not audit for fraud. So going to the presentation, we talked about what management's responsibility is as it relates to the financial statements. We talked about what our responsibility is. Now, we perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, because obviously this is a governmental entity, and uniform guidance. And those are the standards related to federal programs and reporting on federal programs. We did issue an unmodified opinion, which is basically based on our audit procedures. We feel that the financial statements are free of a material misstatement, and therefore our opinion is unmodified, is what we call it today. Internal controls, we talked a little bit about that. If there's three types of internal control weaknesses: a control deficiency, which is a minor weakness in the internal controls, which we would probably just present orally. A significant deficiency is a weakness in the internal controls that would have to be written up in our report with a management response. And then a significant deficiency that's considered a material weakness would also be written up in our report with management response. The difference between a significant deficiency and a material weakness is a material weakness is the weakness is so bad that it's probable that a material misstatement in the financial statements could exist and go undetected. So we're happy to report that we had no material weaknesses noted, and we had no instances of non-compliance as a result of our audit procedures. In testing the federal programs, we're required to get a percentage coverage of all federal program expenditures. This year we tested the child nutrition cluster, got us about a little over 40% of the federal expenditures for the district. There again, we issued an unmodified opinion as it related to that, and we had no material weaknesses noted as it related to the audit of the major program. and we had no findings that needed to be disclosed to you in accordance with uniform guidance. The third part of our audit is we review certain budgetary and transportation and attendance records as it's required by DESE. We perform that part of the engagement in accordance with attestation standards issued by the AICPA. And related to those items, we also gave an unmodified opinion. So there's basically 4 opinions in the package. There's a opinion on the financial statements, 2 opinions related to federal programs or federal compliance, and then an opinion related to the DESE stuff. As we talked about the required communications that we're required to do, the significant accounting policies used by the district is described in Note A. As we discussed, the government-wide financial statements are prepared on accrual basis, and the fund financial statements are on the modified accrual. This year, the district, there was a new GASB that came out related to compensated absences and recording some additional liability or possible additional liability for that. When we computed that, it's basically based on historical data or information of payouts is how it's computed. The implementation was immaterial, so we didn't have to restate the beginning fund balance. We just added it to this year because it was really pretty minor to the financial statements. No transactions lacked authoritative guidance or consensus. The financial statement disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. We encountered no difficulties in performing our audit, and we had no disagreements with management, which are always good to report. The most significant estimates in the financial statements, the biggest by far is the net pension liability, which is the district's proportionate share of the funding of the retirement obligation, state retirement obligation, and the OPEB liability. Those are done through actuarial computations. And when we test those, we have to test what information was submitted to get the information back from the actuary. So those are significant estimates, especially the OPEB and the net pension liability. When we're doing an audit, I talked about risk, and when we look at risk, we have to determine where we think there are risks that could be related to the audit that could cause a material misstatement. Two items that are always part of the risk is management override of controls and improper revenue recognition. You have to address those 2 risks for every audit that you do. And then from there, we look at the client or the entity where we think they would have their risk based on our knowledge of prior year experience and discussing with management. The management override of controls obviously is because they have the ability to manipulate the accounting records, so that it makes it hard, like I talked about earlier, it's harder to detect if there's fraud or manipulation, so that's always a risk. The net pension liability is a substantial estimate and has subjective judgment, so we feel that is a risk. And the compensated absences, mostly because it was a new standard this year, so we thought there could be some risk recomputing that in a different way for the first time. And then the improper revenue recognition, we can confirm so much of the revenue of the district through property taxes and federal programs and the monies that come through DESE. That's really not a risk that we feel like in this audit, but we do have to address that. So. We have compiled with all ethical requirements regarding our independence. Every audit that we do, we have to be independent, but the independent standards for governmental entities are even a little bit higher and more strict, and we did adhere to those. There were no financial misstatements that we came across in our audit, which would basically mean there was a misstatement in the financial statement that needed to be corrected for the financial statements not to be materially misstated. So we're always happy when we don't have an audit adjustment. We did obtain the representation letter from management, and that was the same day as our audit opinion, which was December the 25th. And that date's important. And it's a little late this year because we were all waiting patiently for the compliance supplement to come out, and it came out last Monday or something like that. And so we had a lot of financial statements that had to get done. But so basically what that date means is if there was a subsequent event or if there was a commitment or contingent liability in between the June 30th and that date, we have to review those items to determine if there's an adjustment that needs to be made to the financial statements or a disclosure. So that's the significance of that date. The representation letter itself is from management telling us that they answered all of our questions, gave us all the information that we asked for, made us aware if there was any commitments, contingencies, or subsequent events. So the financial statements are considered complete and accurate. All information has been disclosed to us as the auditors. The last thing is if management were to have a consultation with some other CPA, and that's usually about a standard that we don't agree how it needs to be implemented or something like that, but if it's sort of getting a second opinion, if that was done, we would have to make you aware of that, and to our knowledge, that was not done. Lastly, we too would like to thank the district and the staff for their cooperation. This financial statement is, it's over 100 pages, a lot of information, especially when you get into the statistical information. There's a lot of stuff in there, 10 years worth of information. So to get that all prepared, reviewed, and approved by Missouri ASBO is they do a really good job for us, and we're happy to work with them. So if anyone has any questions, that's the people on the right are the people that did all the work.
Well, Brian, thank you. We appreciate you being here tonight, and I think I can speak for all of us on the board. None of us are accountants, and so we appreciate the level of professionalism that you all take in undertaking this audit. Every year, this summer, Julia called me, and we talked about, every year I get a phone call, and does the board have any concerns, or are there any areas you want us to look at? And the number of clean audits in a row we have had escapes my memory. I can't remember when we have had an audit that wasn't darn near perfect. And so that gives us a lot of reassurance on the board, but it also gives our community a lot of reassurance. And but that comes at the price of having you spend so much time digging into everything. And I know it can be a little painstaking for Don and Carrie and their teams, but we're grateful for the work that you all do, and appreciate the honor.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So following all that, may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2024-2025 audited financial statements as presented in the December 10th, 2025 board meeting materials? So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper.
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Ms. Matt Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Schindler.
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer.
Yes.
Mr. Spector.
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have Section D policies. Those pertain to fiscal management. We've had an opportunity to review those. Well, some of us have reviewed them, some of us have yet to review them.
I'm warming up.
Kevin will get there. But we still have some time. It will be up for approval in January. Does anyone have any questions thus far for Carrie or anyone else? Okay.
I don't have a question, but I would just say, I was a part of the subcommittee that reviewed, and any question I did have was promptly answered, and shows that I should not be writing policies.
Duly noted. All right, so those policies will be up for a vote at the January regular board meeting. Next up, we have our annual achievement report. We get the great pleasure of hearing from Carter Snow, who we only unfortunately get to hear from about once a year. So welcome, Carter.
Happy to see you. Oh, I got backup. It looks like.
You don't need it.
President Assad, Vice President. It's been a while, Hopper. Debbie, it's so good to see you. Members of the board, Dr. Schneider, Mrs. Stover, I am happy to see you, and I am happy to present our annual achievement report again. And so we're going to focus today on 3 key areas related to our progress from last school year. And so our CSIP, it really supports our strategic plan, and it guides us towards meeting our mission. MSIP 6 is the state's version of evaluating and accrediting school districts. And so we're going to look at our performance in relationship to MSIP 6. And then finally, we're going to make a note of our participation with the Success Ready Student Network, SRSN, and how that builds towards a better system to measure meaningful learning, student growth, and future readiness throughout the school year. And so you're going to hear from Dr. Holman-Best and Dr. Beckner more about our CSIP and our work going forward. But as a part of this presentation, I will make note of things and highlight CSIP relevant measures as we monitor our progress and our achievement throughout the year. With that in mind, we're going to be looking closely at achievement, equity, and personalized and relevant to real world learning. But keep in mind that all of these things are interrelated. We can't talk about achievement without well-being, and we can't look about achievement without having a great facility and staff available to support our students. And so while I will highlight the metrics and measures related to 3 key areas, just know that it really, each aspect, each of these focus areas, each of these goal areas really does relate back to how we do as a school district. And so I do love graphs that go up and to the right, and this one does too. And so these are our annual performance reports from the state of Missouri in relationship to MSIP 6. And over the last 3 years, you can see a steady increase in our annual achievement report related to both performance and continuous improvement as measured by the state of Missouri. And so although we are under a waiver from APR with our participation with the Success Ready Student Network, it's also just nice to know that our score keeps going up and that we're doing the right things for our students. And so it would be remiss of me if not to acknowledge the hard work of our students, of our teachers, of our staff, of our community members that do play a vital role in seeing this ongoing performance trend. And so with that, in relation to the last kind of focus area that we'll discuss here this evening, is just a quick definition of what the Success Ready Student Network is. As a reminder, our participation, which certainly is voluntary and approved by you, as we pilot a competency-based system that shifts that focus from annual achievement to through-year achievement and growth. I know it's nice to be here in December presenting this annual achievement report. If you'd have me back, I'd do it every 3 months. But that is the idea, is that we will not only be measuring with lagging indicators, but throughout the year, how are we doing with actionable, timely feedback that's supporting individual student growth, achievement, mastery, and attainment of what we'll discuss here in just a second, which are market value assets. So I will use the MSIP 6 indicators as a way to kind of guide our conversation tonight and our understanding of achievement. And so those indicators are status and growth, student group, both status and growth, success ready students and market value assets, attendance, and graduation rate. And I know that you know, we like our acronyms, and so let me define a few key terms, but I have to say that I'll do my best to avoid 3-letter acronyms, but it is partly my nature because I work in a department called Teaching and Learning and Accountability, which literally stands for TLA, which is also a 3-letter acronym. So with that in mind, we're going to discuss a few key terms. One is MPI, which is Map Performance Index. That is the way the state really looks at performance on MAP tests. And so that MPI measure is a continuous measure based on how students do in that test. It comes up with a 3-digit number, and that gives us ability to compare year-to-year performance and performance between grade levels and groups. Another term that we use commonly with both MSIP 6 and even within the SRSN and in our CSIP is a term called student group. And so student group refers to the group of students that are Black or Hispanic, students with an IEP, students receiving free and reduced lunch, and students learning English. And so this is one way to define a group of students that we know that we have continued work and growth in order for us to meet our mission. And then finally, market value assets, which is a new-ish term for us, certainly not the first time we've discussed it, but MVAs support future success for students in the workplace, in college and career. They really truly are marketable skills that are high in demand and can be used by employers, placed in a resume or portfolio. That's something that's valuable for students as they go on to what's next beyond Parkway. And so to start with status and growth, I'll go through a few key metrics as we explore both MAP and NWEA scores. So as you can see in the report, in both ELA and in math, our achievement in measured by the MAP test in grades 3 through 8, and then select end of course exams in high school, we continue to exceed the state average as well as the state target for achievement in both ELA and math. You can see that in math, our post-pandemic progress mirrors that of the state, rising from just below the state target of 400 as an MPI to well above that state target of 400 as an MPI. Similarly, in science and social studies, we are well above the state average in Parkway. And for the first year since the pandemic, we're actually exceeding the state average. The state target in science with a score above 400 as an MPI. And then in social studies, you can see this dramatic improvement in the last 2 years where we've exceeded both the state average and the state target for performance on that government exam. But we know we can't just measure one time a year progress over time. We want to see how we're doing throughout the school year. And so our participation in the SRSN allows us to really look at our performance throughout the year. And so to highlight some key features in reading, which is really measured in second grade through English 2 for our students, we saw that in the spring, we had 76% of our students achieving our average or above. Our CSIP goal was actually 80%. With the folks that I get to work with, I like to say we set goals that make us a little bit nervous. They should. We want them to be high but attainable. And so we came just short of reaching our goal in the spring despite some progress from fall to winter. We don't just look at students' achievement, though. We also look at how each of our students is growing. The second metric is really a metric around growth. We had a CSEP goal of 52% of students meeting a growth goal. According to NWEA, growth goals are actually pretty tough to meet. And so their expectation is that 50%, if we're average, 50% of our students will meet our growth goal. We met that average. We just didn't exceed it in the spring. Again, from fall to winter, we were on track to meet that 52% goal, but fell just short in the spring. And then we can look at these metrics kind of in combination. So we can look at what we call the quadrant report that really compares students in terms of low growth, low achievement, all the way up to high growth and high achievement. And so we see 40% of our students in that high growth and high achievement quadrant, which is quite hard to do actually as we continue to push and excel students at the highest achievement level. Our areas of growth obviously are areas where we have students that might be lower achieving, but also not yet growing at the level that will get them to that high achievement status. So we see 21% of our students in that quadrant. In mathematics, we see a similar trend with 72.4% of our students at average or above achievement in the spring. Again, some growth from fall to winter, and then falling just short of our CSIP goal, which was 78% in the spring. With 48.5% of our students meeting their growth goal from NWEA. And then again, looking at the quadrants of both growth and achievement. I will make a note here in your PDF copy and version, there was a slight error where that green box was below and it moved up. And so it may look different than the version you have, but this is of course the amended and correct version. So 38% of our students with high achievement and high growth, 11% of our students with low achievement but high growth, so moving towards high achievement, 25% of students with low growth and low achievement, and 26% of students with high achievement but not yet meeting their growth goal. So our mission, calls on us to strive to ensuring all students are capable, curious, confident, and caring learners. As we continue to work towards equitable outcomes for all students, there remains a performance gap between students and students in the student group. Simply put, our work is not yet done. And so the next figures will highlight where we have those gaps and how large they are. So again, according to the state end-of-year measure, the MAP test, we can see how all students in red do compared to students in the student group. Despite us achieving above state averages for students in the student group, our goal is not simply to do that, it's to close those gaps over time. And the metrics to the right give us an idea or indication of which students in the student group have the biggest discrepancies. And so we can see that our Black students, our students who are receiving free and reduced lunch, and our students in IEPs have largest discrepancies in performance when compared to all students, while students who are Hispanic and learning English have a smaller discrepancy compared to other students in the student group. Throughout the year, we measure similar discrepancies on NWEA. And so this metric is slightly different as it measures students in the student group and students not in the student group. So we can see that achievement, the percent of students scoring average or above, for students not in the student group, nearly 90% of students are average or above who aren't in the student group. But students in the student group, we have slightly over half, above 55% of our students at average or above achievement. In math, again, similar trends where we can see we are all growing together in math, but that gap is not necessarily closing at the rate we're comfortable with. And the largest discrepancies exist for Black students, free and reduced lunch students, and students with individualized education plans, with smaller gaps existing for Hispanic students or students learning English. And again, throughout the year, what progress have we made towards closing those gaps? As we can see from NWEA in math, which again is kindergarten in this case, all the way through algebra, we can see that those gaps started to close slightly from fall to winter, but unfortunately widened again towards the spring. So the next big area we're going to look at is success-ready students, and this is just the best picture of a student who clearly has a market value asset. And so we're going to look quickly at ACT scores. And so over the past 4 years, we can see the comparison between Parkway ACT scores, the state average composite score, and national average composite scores. Partially, this is a conversation is what is ACT scores post-pandemic realities. And so we're happy to report that in 2025, we actually see our graduate ACT composite score going back up. As a quick reminder, we do give the ACT to all of our juniors. And so it's an opportunity for all of the students to have get the opportunity to take the test with us. And so this is representative of nearly every junior in Parkway. Of course, they have additional opportunities on their own to take that their senior year as well. And so these graduate ACT scores are representative of the class of 2025. Another key metric that we often look at when we think about success-ready student network, and as we'll see in market value assets, are advanced placement tests. So of course, advanced placement allows students opportunities to gain college credit on courses. And so we know that both the number of exams and the number of students on Parkway taking AP tests is very high. We had over 1,500 students taking AP tests the last 2 years in a row, although last year we saw the number of AP tests declined slightly. So same number of kids taking tests, they just took slightly fewer than before. But I am very excited to say that even with very high participation rates with AP tests, we have a lot of our students scoring 3 or above, which generally confers college credit depending on the university that you might be applying to. And then as we really look and work with SRSN, Success Ready Student Network, on market value assets, we are getting to expand really our conception of what are valuable assets for students as they go into the college and career workplace. And so we know that this is a lagging indicator from the state as well as SRSN. So what I'm reporting here is really the class of 2024, as the state has moved to these sort of metrics being always lagging a year behind to ensure accuracy. And so 79.2% of our students earned a market value asset. As you can see, the majority of those market value assets were earned through college and career coursework. So things that we just looked like AP tests, dual credit, those sort of opportunities, as well as qualifying assessments, things like ACTs. We're really excited to work with our real world learning task force as we start to expand what entrepreneurial experiences can look like, how we monitor those, work experiences, career and technical education, because we know those are areas not only that we can offer additional opportunities for students, but also quite literally as a bean counter, how we can count existing experiences for students and incorporate them into market value assets. As we know that students do a lot of amazing things outside of the school day that we have a difficult opportunity is counting towards market value assets. So Lindsay Perkins, as her work in leadership with Real World Learning Task Force, is certainly tackling this, and we're working together with how we can report these measures accurately and give additional opportunities for our students to earn these valuable skills. And then finally, our last two areas that we'll kind of key in on is attendance. And so attendance is something that post-pandemic has also we've seen a real impact on. And so the state really looks at what percent of your students attend 90% of the time or more. And so for last year, we had 88.5% of our students attend 90% or more, which is actually up from the past few years. And so if we think 4 years ago, we were 87, then we went to 86, and now we've kind of been hovering around 88.5 for a couple of years. Pre-pandemic, just for point of reference, we were usually right at or above 90. And so this continues to be an area that we look at as we want to make sure that students are healthy and come to school on a regular basis. And then finally, taking a look at our graduation rate, another really great area to celebrate is that 95.8% of our students graduated in 4 years. And so the state standard here, what they're looking for in terms of points is that do we have 92% of our students graduate within 4, 5, 6, or 7 years? So we're happy to report that we are exceeding that standard within 4 years, and we can actually see growth within that standard over the last 4 years. I've also put here how different groups of students have performed in terms of graduation rates for the class of 2025. And I would just highlight that our English language learners actually had a higher graduation rate than the rest of the Parkway graduates of the class of 2025 on average. So again, speaking to the hard work that all of our staff and students and families are doing to ensure that students have credits and attainment towards graduation. So while it's true to say that you measure what matters, we recognize these metrics are just an incomplete story of Parkway's incredible successes and areas of growth. I look forward to diving further into a conversation about the stories that shape our path forward, about the state of our district. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Well, first of all, thank you for counting all the beans. We appreciate it. I know it's not an easy task to gather all of those pieces of information. I had a question about attendance. I know that's been a struggle for several years. Do you know of the 12%, 11.5% that aren't regularly attending? Can you define that group, or do we have a large number of people that just don't attend, or do we have a small group that are regular non-attendees? How's that 11.5% made up?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So in terms of the metric itself, if you looked at our average attendance rate, it's actually well above that because we have so many students who come to school on a regular basis. And their attendance rate exceeds 95%. We do have a portion of students which, typically we classify chronic absenteeism as missing more than 10% of school, or about more than 18 days of school at the end of the school year. And so those reasons do vary quite wildly. As I know our staff have conversations about during year extended vacations with families. all the way to chronic absence that is related to illness, to simply, I don't want to come to school today. And so the reasons are really multifactorial. And, you know, if really, I think it's really important that we do take that approach to solving the issue as we look at, do our students feel safe at school? Do they feel like they belong? Do they feel like if they work hard, they can make a difference in what they're doing during the day? And so it's simply, it goes beyond just, are they achieving? Do they feel like they want to come? It really gets deep into a multi kind of pronged approach to addressing the issue, because we know that the reasons that students don't come are also, there's many reasons that they don't show up. So that is one, I think, highlight actually as we work towards more closely with our building leaders, with student services, with teaching and learning accountability, learning from each other about efficacy, self-efficacy, about sense of belonging, what our students are saying, as I know our building leaders lead focus groups with how students develop a better sense of belonging. It's easy to say all of that's going to help improve attendance numbers. I truly believe it will, but I do appreciate just the approach that it's simply building a stronger culture of school that encourages students to come. Of course, stay home when you're sick, but come to school when you're healthy.
Thank you.
So our work with the Success Ready Network, I know when it was first kicked off, there was talks about one day maybe not having to do map testing. I think I've said it here before that I can't stand the map test. I'm not a fan of it. Are we anywhere on that? With the student, the Success Ready Network, or is that kind of, we're never going to be getting away from the map test just given where we are politically?
There is recently a timeline from Success Ready Student Network about starting with a very small group of students, not in Parkway, but across the state this spring, on piloting what could be a new assessment. That pilot would expand next year and continue to expand the following year. And so that is something we're looking very closely at our participation and when we want to jump in with that. To be aware though that has to be state board approved as well. And so we've been working really closely with our partners at the state. It's actually been quite nice that at all of the SRSN meetings, we have members from DESE, the Department of Education, there with us and collaboratively planning and guiding us along the way. And so I know that there's a State Board of Education meeting, I believe in January, where this will be further discussed as we have the federal waiver, and now we're looking for the state participation and waiver with that as well.
Thanks.
So before it was like sometime in the
Right.
future, but we actually do have some concrete timelines.
Good.
Yeah.
So I have a question. It may be better suited for Dr. Beckner, but what are we doing to close the gap between all and the student groups?
Yeah. I will let him respond, but I got the mic for now. So I think there are many things, and I will say somewhat selfishly, because it relates to some of the work we're doing with our multi-tiered system of supports, is really taking a very holistic approach at how we address student needs. And so really, as Dr. Lucas, myself, Dr. Schulte, Dr. Magaja all get to work together and collaboratively plan our leadership development around how we support students with this multi-tiered system of supports that builds in equity and a belief in all. That ensures we have a curriculum that reflects the students, that students can access, and we have a really clear learning intentions, success criteria. And not just that, but we have systems that respond to students when they don't learn. And so we are quite literally at the foundation of that work. But I do think it's worth us spending the time to build a strong foundation to continue to grow this work, because we know that this work is essential to closing those gaps.
He answered that beautifully. The only thing I would add is I'm really happy with how tonight's timeline worked out. We're immediately following this presentation. Dr. Holman-Bess and I are going to give an update on our CSIP work, and Dr. Holman-Bess is going to walk through many of the things we're currently doing. So you'll hear in a moment more in depth about what we're doing around that multi-tiered system of supports to try to support all of our students whether they are high achieving and need to be pushed or whether they're struggling and need additional support. So we'll be able to go in a little bit more detail in our work session here in just a moment. But I would have hit very heavily, yes, on our multi-tiered system of supports and how we're trying to build a holistic system that supports all of our students regardless of where they are in their learning.
A couple of questions here. How are the Fern Ridge students included in this data, if at all?
Yeah, so Fern Ridge students are included in the data in a few ways. Of course, attendance and graduation rate, and those are huge areas of successes for Fern, but as well as end of course exams. And so students who attend Fern may take end of course exams, whether that be in algebra or biology, English 2, or government. Most typically government based on when students enter into Fern Ridge. And then students at Fern can also participate in NWEA assessments, whether that be English 1, 2, or if they're taking algebra. And so certainly give the represented in that. As well as when we think about market value assets and what opportunities exist for students at Fern, I know that we really expand what we consider a market value asset. We really want to look intentionally at what credentialing might students earn who might be at an alternative school or program. I know that students who attend South Tech, for example, can earn a industry recognized credential. And so we have some students who can be dual enrolled in both of those. Yeah, so the score itself does go back to the home school. However, their score is included in Parkway schools. So.
Okay, so they're included in MAP as well?
Well, MAP is inclusive of grades 3 through 8, but also includes end of course exams. So students who are in Fern take end of course exams.
Okay,
when appropriate.
thank you. And then what's the status of NWEA being accepted by DESE?
So as we continue that work, we're in this interim period where NWEA allowed us to apply for and successfully get the waiver from APR. As the state and SRSN move forward with planning around assessment, it looks like they're designing a different assessment other than NWEA or any other purchase assessment that other districts use, like iReady. And that will be their proposal to move forward with a new assessment system. I would say that it mirrors some of the features we like about NWEA. We want to move towards an adaptive system. We want to move toward a system that's through year, not just end of year. But it's not NWEA itself.
So if that happens, are we going to have to make a purchase for a new system then? Or?
So I think something to consider around our assessments is that we're not over-assessing students. And so if we were to move forward with this piloted program with SRSN, that may be the system that meets our needs for our students, and we wouldn't have to provide NWEA. It really also depends if the state picks this system up and runs with it. And so like the state has the opportunity to potentially replace our MAP test with this new version. We do purchase the MAP test. It's a very minimal fee. But when it comes to NWEA, kind of how this pilot progresses, we'll be closely paying attention to that and whether or not we need to continue to purchase NWEA and continue with that system. In regards to reading, however, which is really screening for dyslexia and foundational reading needs, that will continue to happen in grades K through 3 as it is a state mandate. The state should approve a new list of assessment vendors this December, which we anticipate any day, and that will help us guide our path forward with what assessment we move forward with K through 3 reading.
Okay. My last question has to do with the ACT. My understanding is that there was a whole new ACT developed and in use now this year. How has Parkway been accommodating this new are you using that new ACT test with our students and helping them to learn how to take the test with timing and pacing and things like that?
We will. So this will be the first year that the district ACT is within kind of the new ACT guidance. And so In short, it's a little bit shorter. So there's fewer questions on the new version of the ACT. And for the first time ever, we had the opportunity to decide if we wanted to give science or not. Previously, it was just the 4 content areas, and you always gave science. We are continuing with giving the science administration as a district this spring in March. And so in terms of the content itself, it doesn't really differ dramatically. It's really about the timing of the test. There's fewer questions, a little bit more time to complete those questions, and we will continue to give science. When students have the opportunity to take the ACT with ACT on a national test date, they can take individual portions, so the students could go in and just take the math portion. So that's a different opportunity that the national test dates are offering for students, as well as super scoring. And simply that means that colleges and universities might just take the highest score from each of the content areas as a composite rather than just one test experience as the composite. And so we will continue with not only offering that new version of the ACT for our juniors, but we're also going to continue offering a shortened practice ACT for our 9th graders and a pre-ACT for our 10th graders as we continue to prepare them for that testing experience junior year. Certainly been working with our college and career counselors as well as our high schools and principals to know that here's the new timing regulations, here how it might look different. Quite literally, do we need to adjust bus schedules? But all of that has certainly been shared, and we're looking forward to what the experience could look like in March.
And do you anticipate there to be any changes with when the ACT is given next year? I think there was, the national date was different for Parkway. There was the calendar confusion or some calendar conflict that Parkway didn't go along with. I think we did a lot earlier, like in March.
Yeah,
instead of like April.
We have a number of options from ACT in terms of when we administer. And so we're once again choosing the early spring administration. Really, we want to be intentional that we're avoiding any religious conflicts or holidays. We want to make sure that we have as many students as there as possible. And then some of the April dates, when we get into testing, not only are we considering ACT, but we're considering ACT AP testing into course exams. And so really when we think about the staff who are responsible for staffing, but also just testing fatigue, we moved ACT into March to provide a little bit more space for many of our staff who are supporting staffing, supporting testing rather, to make sure that we can prepare the best experience for students.
Okay, thank you.
So, I'm sorry, you mentioned, I think I got this right, for the NWEA reading, it's from 2nd grade through English 2?
Yeah, so we have 2 different NWEA assessments. One of them is NWEA reading fluency, and that's kindergarten through 3rd grade. And then NWEA reading growth, which is 2nd grade through English 2.
What about for math?
For math, so we have NWEA math growth, which is kindergarten through algebra. So we give depending on, some 8th graders take algebra, NWEA, some 8th graders take the growth version of that. But they do offer a course-specific assessment in high school, which is what we offer, the algebra version.
Real quick, so we talked about that we got a waiver from APR, yet every year we get APR. So what's the point of the waiver?
Well, when we applied for the waiver, we were told we wouldn't get an APR score.
Right.
But we continue to do so. And so, I think we're very clearly focused on measuring our CSIP, because that gives us the guidance not only at the end of the year, but throughout the year in terms of how we're doing. And so as Dr. Holman-Best and Dr. Beckner present, they're going to be very much driven by our CSIP measures and how we're relating against those. We do kind of glance at APR just as a way of triangulating against our internal measures of how we're doing. How are we doing against the state measures as well? It's nice when we're doing well against them, but it's kind of shown us that we can have not only kind of a reflection of performance at the end of the year, but it's really nice to come back in January with our leaders and say, how are we doing right now? What's working? what do we need to improve, and really have that real-time feedback. And so that happens, of course, at the administration level, but it also happens within the classroom. And so those conversations around goal setting with students, around what are you doing to achieve those goals, the celebrations of successes, the honest conversations about areas of growth, that gives us really that real-time feedback. And so CSIP measures, we're certainly focused on our SRSN measures, including NWEA. But of course, yeah, we do get that score at the end of the year. And we look pretty good with that score too, in comparison with many other districts in the area.
Okay, thank you very much, Carter.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next up, we have Dr. Tiffany Holman Beth and Dr. Kevin Beckner to present CSIP.
Carter Snow is a hard act to follow. Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Schneider, Mrs. Stover. As you know, we have been focusing on 3 areas of our comprehensive school improvement plan: student success in school, success in life, and resources for student success. Tonight, we'll give a brief update on how we're doing on metrics associated with each of these 3 areas. I want to highlight on this slide for you something that you heard Carter talk about in our annual achievement report as MTSS. And so this is strategy 2. When we talk about develop and implement and expand it and consistently apply multi-tiered system of support to ensure each student's academic success and well-being. This is the thread, it is the through line for us, it is the plate that holds us accountable to ensuring that our students and our staff have exactly what they need to succeed. So as we go through this, you will see a theme of what we are doing to further support the work in the system. So starting with strategy 4, it is indeed part of our MTSS work. We have, under the leadership of Dr. Amy Gurkencoats, launched a system-wide professional development plan. During the 4 professional development days, our certified staff is involved in development in 4 areas: curriculum, MTSS, equity and belonging, social emotional learning, and well-being. They are deeply connected to the strategies of MTSS and are a cornerstone of our work. When we think about student well-being, we know that it is intimately connected to their academics. And so under the leadership of Dr. Aaron Schulte Hamilton and Dr. Sherry McGija, we begun developing curriculum, and our schools have participated in administration of the fall SEL survey this year. All of our schools have participated. We've paired this data with some initial student achievement data, and Dr. Beckner will share that in just a few slides. Last year, Dr. Cortelia Lucas started her work with the Equity in Action leadership team to guide the work of EIA, Equity in Action team, to focus the priorities on strategies 2 and 3, which talk about our equity work. As part of this ongoing work, all 29 of our schools this fall had learning walks. During those learning walks, we collected data and got feedback around our research-based culture responsive engagement strategies. Our schools are setting goals for those, and we'll have a second round of walks in the spring. This year, we're also bringing to completion our instructional model task force work. And so as we endeavor in all of this work around curriculum and service to MTSS, we recognize that teachers need a battery of strategies, and research-based strategies that will ensure that our Tier 1 instruction for them in the classroom every day is possible, but also supports their work with students. And in the area of student success, individual student problem solving has kicked off. This guides our work with our students who have the most intense needs. It's intentional and systemic process, and we are retraining our schools around how to run this process, and that will start in February of this year. So I know you may be wondering, how in the world are we keeping it all together? Dr. Snow, as we like to give him his doctorate, Carter talked about the work that we do inside of our leadership meetings. Our leadership meetings have really become an opportunity for us to become a learning organization. So we do bring together teaching, learning, and accountability, and student services, along with parts of our operations teams when we do our principals meetings. And during that time, our leaders are learning about development around our 6 essential standards for MTSS. And we recognize that our teachers need to be developed as well. And so, again, with Dr. Beckner's support and many others, Amy Gherkin-Coates has created a systemic professional development plan for our educators, in which they always, on our full day PD days, receive training and curriculum around clarity for learning to ensure our Tier 1 instruction is aligned to standards, essential standards for the district. And then they do have an opportunity to participate in 2 choice sessions for the other 3 that you see there: MTSS, equity and belonging, and social, emotional, and well-being. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Beckner to talk about some metrics.
Well, thank you so much. Sure, thank you. I appreciate the question about Ms. Matt Franklin about what are we doing to help all of our students succeed. And I want to hit on one word in particular that we keep saying when we say MTSS, and that's the word system, because there is no one silver bullet to ensure that every single student is successful. It really takes a holistic system of us working through all those pieces that Dr. Holman-Best just mentioned to really create the conditions for all of our students to be successful, to provide the strategies that help reach those students, to be able to identify through our curriculum which standards are essential and which standards students aren't meeting, and then to apply the appropriate interventions to all of those students. And so when we're talking about this, it's a lot of things because it is a system that we are building. And along with that system, we have 5 objectives that relate to the pieces Dr. Holman-Best just described. We'll go through each of those 5 and talk about our progress so far. You'll notice that they'll tie very nicely into what Carter Snow just shared with us about our achievement from last year, but also provide an update on where we are currently in this school year. So this was one that was referenced in Carter's presentation about the percent of students who are scoring at or above average. We have set a goal this year, an objective of 81% of our students reaching that objective in ELA and 78.5 in math. You'll notice that's higher than what we had last year. And that's because NWA actually, it's a nationally normed assessment. And every once in a while they have to look around and say, is this still how kids are doing? And they have to change those norms, and it actually caused us to raise our goal and raise our target higher, where previously it was below 80. Now in English, we're looking at 81% as our target. In the fall of this year, we have 79.4% of our students who are achieving at or above average. In math, that target is 78.5. In fall, we were at 76.6. Our students are actually in the process of taking the winter assessment currently. So we actually do have about half of our students who've already completed the winter assessment, but we're waiting for the other half of those results that will happen between now and winter break. In terms of growth, we don't just want our students to achieve, but we want them to grow. We want them to keep moving forward even if their achievement isn't high. So again, we're setting that mark at 52% this year. These are the same numbers that Carter shared before. And once we have that winter assessment, we'll be able to compare that to the fall assessment. We just don't have that data just yet, but we will in the near future. This is one that we've been watching for a long time, and that's how do we continue to close those gaps between all of our students and students who might be one of those student groups that we heard about. We set that target somewhat blind, to be fair, because we didn't have multiple years of the NWEA measure, but that we said we want to close the gap between all students and the student group by 3%. In English, we were about flat. We actually went the wrong direction by 0.2%. In math, that gap closed by 2.2%. So not quite at that target, but we are going to keep monitoring that because we need all of our students to achieve and we want to close any of those gaps. The last 2 objectives we don't yet have data on. The 4th one is about our SEL survey. And this is the first year that we have 100% of our schools having students take that assessment, so we'll be able to get our baseline data. But when we look back last year at the 28 or so schools that did participate, we had 54.2% of our students show growth in show strength in at least 4 of those areas, 4 of the domains within the SEL survey. The 5th one has a lot of numbers, but this is really the heart of the work that Dr. Holman-Best shared around building out our multi-tiered system of supports. It can't just be a hope that we achieve our multi-tiered system of supports. We have to have a plan that we can execute. So part of that is of all the pieces which are listed here, and there are many within each of these areas, there are several that are in orange. There are 6 that we've identified as essential standards for our schools for this year, that we want to make sure that our schools are getting to. We have a rubric that's a 4-point scale. We want in these 6 key areas to get all schools to at least a 2. They took that survey before the school year. They took that survey at the beginning of the summer, actually, right as we received development from our partners at Solution Tree. We had that big June kickoff event where we had all schools bring their MTSS leadership teams, and they completed their assessment. And you see that we had none of the areas that were at a 2 at that point. Our schools are in the process of now taking that self-assessment again, so they can see, okay, we've been working now for about half a school year. What progress have we made? We'll be getting those results here. I believe they're due to Dr. Holman Best on the 17th of December. So we'll be able to get that check-in point of where exactly are all of our schools. And we hope to see a lot of movement around that. Those key areas are really focused on three basic things. One, creating the conditions where all students can learn, a really positive environment where we believe in all of our kids. The second big area is really just about setting up the infrastructure, that schools have leadership teams, that they're having these conversations, that they're meeting regularly, that they have the right people at the table, and that they have the skills they need to really do the work that we're talking about. And then the last one is a lot of the work that many of you heard a lot about last year, where we rewrote almost a third of all the classes in Parkway to get really clear about what's essential in every single course. What do kids really need to know, and make our curriculum much more focused on those things that really matter. And that's how we implement that. So we've been doing that work this year with our teachers and helping them show students what those outcomes are, talk to them about it during class, refer to those things as they're teaching, and then informally check for understanding. That's a lot of what that curriculum clarity piece that Dr. Holman Best mentioned in our PD is really about, is building out this system of supports. So we'll be getting more data on this again very shortly. I don't want to put that one up yet. I want it to be a surprise. So we've also been, helping our students be successful is not just about academics. Carter mentioned it's also about their well-being, it's about their social emotional learning. So we've been able, now that we have our SEL assessments, to start to actually combine them with our academic assessments. So this is really interesting. The first one I'm going to show you is when students have a strong sense of belonging. So all of these questions in the survey relate to sense of belonging. Each one of these boxes is a question. And what you can see is, like Carter's language, we like it when they go bottom left to top right. What this is showing is that when students say that they have a strong sense of belonging at school, they are achieving higher on NWEA. So we're seeing a direct correlation and a strong correlation between students' social emotional well-being, their belonging at school, and how they're achieving academically, which just tells us that we can't just be focused on help them learn math, but how do we also help them feel connected to school, feel like they really belong, that they have adults that care about them, that they have fellow students who care about them, that they really belong at school. There's also another set of questions, though, that really shows a much stronger correlation, which is incredibly interesting. I'll put this chart up just so you can see the top, bottom left to top right. A really incredibly strong correlation here. All of these questions have to do with students' self-efficacy. And that means their belief in themselves, their abilities to positively and confidently engage in tasks. So some of these questions, no, you can't read them up there, but things like, how sure you can learn? How sure are you that you can learn all the subjects that are taught in this class? Or how sure are you that you'll remember next year what you're learning right now? And we find that when students are saying, I'm not sure that I can do this, they're also not performing well academically. The students recognize themselves how their achievement level is affecting their confidence. And so we've already begun working with our principals and identifying strategies to how can our teachers build self-efficacy in students? How can they help them feel most confident, see success in their work, see other students succeeding and begin to believe in themselves? So this is all part of what we're monitoring so that we can help grow all of our students, not just academically, but also in their well-being. Jumping over to student success in life, which is one of our other key areas, along with student success in school and resources for student success. Many of our objectives in this area are things that we're just bringing on board this year. There's an asterisk here that talks about our real world relevance task force that's launching this year. Carter also mentioned Lindsay Perkins' work around some of that, where we want to get our students connected to those market value asset opportunities. That work is going incredibly well. And we're in February going to be bringing in many of our business and industry partners into that conversation so that we can help them or allow them to inform us so that we can best build out some of those opportunities. So really looking forward to that and growing out these objectives. And to go over that last area, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Holman-Best to talk about our resources that we use to help support students.
And so here we had the opportunity to take a look at the partners that were selected to do the demographic study in partnership with Parkway Steering Committee. We looked at that. The partners, we learned about the partners for the demographic study and facilities assessment at our last steering meeting. Additionally, we continue working, HR continues working with Dr. Lucas's office as we look at diversifying our workforce, as well as hosting Coffee and Careers regionally to get out in the spaces where potential candidates have interest. We hosted one of those this evening and had 14 potential candidates show up for multiple job classes in just a short 2-hour Coffee and Careers. Additionally, we have the budget task force concluding its work, as Carrie shared earlier, and you will be hearing from them shortly with regard to how we are supporting how we're providing resources for student success. And with that, do you have any questions?
So I have a question on the academic and social emotional connection. So if I'm understanding correctly, our NWE is only going to about 8th, 9th, maybe 10th grade, depending on if it's math or ink or reading.
Mhm.
So what are we doing with those 10th, 11th, and 12th graders that
great.
are not taking those assessments?
Great question. They do take the SEL survey. They also take our climate survey, annual climate survey. And so we will have the ability to kind of sit some data. We do have some questions in the climate survey that mirror the SEL survey that we can then go back and take a look at other metrics associated outside of NWA. A lot of that is grade and attendance data that we can also take a look at to see if there are relationships there as well. That is an excellent question for our students who are not sitting for those exams.
I have a question. One of the things that we approved tonight on our action items was strategic initiatives on professional development. Is that being in sync with this CSIP so that our professional learning between this CSIP and what we just approved tonight are
Yeah, Dr.
intersecting?
Holman-Best is going to go there. It's actually intentionally built directly off the CSIP. And she's going to scroll back and find that visual. They're actually directly connected to, there it is, the strategies within the CSIP and the strategic plan. That's what they're labeled up there. S3, for example, being about equity and student belonging. S2 being around MTSS. Curriculum clarity, again, being around how we're getting really clear about student outcomes. And S5 was social emotional well-being. We had, I think the number was 114 of our educators who helped lead development on the November 4th PD Day. That include mental health specialists, social emotional behavior specialists, some counselors, instructional coaches, assistant principals, teachers. So just a ton of people who are coming together and they're getting trained around how they train others in these areas. All the topics are directly CSIP related because we want to make sure that if our teachers aren't getting the message about these things, it doesn't really matter. They're the ones who are working with our students every day, impacting them and their learning. So yes, the PD plan is intentionally connected directly to the CSIP, and the sessions are designed by the leaders of those areas to make sure that our teachers are getting learning tied directly to what they might be able to do to help students.
Okay. And then how is our special ed staff, teachers, paras, et cetera, incorporated with all of this as well?
Excellent question. They also attend our sessions on the professional development days, and then we also pull in our special education administrators into our administrative development meetings. We do have a development plan for principals and assistant principals, and On most cases, our area coordinators are attending our central principals meetings because we are rolling out the same learning that we are doing with principals for our APs, and so they're able to get the development as well.
Okay.
I do also want to celebrate, and I would be remiss if I did not mention that all of the feedback that we received on our November PD Day, our participants scored a 3 or a 4 almost in every single session that was delivered by the educators and leaders that were delivering that development. It was very positively received system-wide by the staff.
Thank you both very much. And that concludes our agenda. Thank you all for attending. We will now reconvene in closed.